Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Friday Business Intelligence Tip. Today, we're going to be talking about Power BI and how to share dashboards and reports with other users. As always, there are many ways to do this, so if you have any other ideas, feel free to share them with us. But I'm going to go through kind of the basics of how to share content within that. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump over to my other screen where over here I have brought up a Power BI session. Now, to keep in mind what we talked about in previous sessions around the different versions and flavors of Power BI, whether you have Power BI Desktop, Power BI Pro, Power BI Premium, the free Power BI, all the different flavors that are out there. Keep in mind that the sharing features come into play when you're using the Power BI service out on the web. So they don't really apply with the desktop version because each person's actually just opening it up on their desktop. So to share content among others, what I'll be referring to is what's used out on the service. So what I did here was I opened up just Power BI and I connected to one of my workspaces, one called Webinar One. Now it's not a very exciting one. I've just got a couple of dashboards on it. And that is about it. Now, most workspaces will have other content out here, but this is enough for me to show kind of the basics of this. So the first thing I want to show you is that within a workspace, what you're going to see is all your different content that's out there. And if you want to share one of the dashboards or reports or data sets or something like that, when you hover over it, one of the options that is on it is share. So if I wanted to share this with another user, it's as simple as clicking share. And what will happen is it'll pop up a dialog here that'll allow you to type in a user. And then it gives you three basic options. Now, these options vary a little bit depending on the version that you're connecting to. Some of the workspaces show it a little bit differently. So this is as of today, 4/22/22 on mine, that of what the options are that are out here. But if I wanted to share this with someone, and I'm going to go ahead and just share it with another one of my coworkers here. Here we go. We'll share it with Jake. And on here, it allows me to share whether or not I want to allow Jake to continue to share this with others, whether they can build content with the data that's in it, or are they just viewing it? And then whether or not I want to send him an email notification saying, here's some content that's shared. If you do that, what will happen is Jake will get an email that'll say, you've been shared this content, and it gives him a link to jump in and do that. Now, when I go ahead and I grant access to that, I give a little message that access has been granted on that. If I want to do something a little more advanced than that, if I do more options here, I can do settings around that. And over here, it's going to show me some different settings that are there. But what I wanted to show you on here was when I go into the settings up here. Actually, I think it's right under here. No, it is under settings. You're going to see some other information, and this is going to be different than the content that is on the overall workspace. So keep in mind that as you're going through it, you have layers of the workspace itself and then each content. What I just did was I shared that one piece of content with Jake. I did not share the whole workspace or anything like that with him. So just keep that in mind, that as I'm doing that, that's for sharing that. So if I do share here, I can give that message, you put in the user, and so forth. Now, if you need something that's a little more robust on this sharing option, there's a manage permissions link. So if I go ahead and I do manage permissions, what that's going to do for that piece of content is show me the list of users that currently can see that. Now you'll notice I'm the owner, and then Jake just has just been shared the content. If I click this advanced option, what I'm going to see is a little more on the option around what's been given to each of these. Now you'll notice here under the permissions area that I'm the administrator, Jake has been granted read and reshare access. If I want to remove one of those or modify that in some way, if I click the um, little three ellipsis next to it, for instance, maybe I don't want Jake to be able to reshare, I can reshare or click that and it will revoke that permission to reshare that. So just keep that in mind that as I go through, I can revoke access or add access just through a share option. Now, the access that you're seeing on that content, if I go back here to my view, um, most of the time, what I am doing is not necessarily doing object by object, but instead I'm dealing with the workspace. So if I wanted to set up users for this workspace, what I can do is, since I'm an administrator, I'm going to see an option over here to the right for access. Now, when I click on access, it's going to give me another type of screen that's going to allow me to set up users for this. So I'll go ahead and I'll put in Jake again on this one. So if I do Jake, Bendickson, and the members I can do in here, I can specify a role that I want that user to have in this workspace. Now that's a term I haven't used yet because on the individual content, it was basically just sharing that content as a viewer or reshare of that data. You can contribute a little bit or use that as an editor, but within here, there's actually 4 delivered roles that are part of Power BI. So if for the workspace, if I wanted to give someone member access, which is someone that's like a Power user, they have a lot of access, just not the overall administration, meaning the ability to delete the workspace or do other workspace global functions. But a member can actually do quite a bit of access to it. A contributor is someone that can actually add new content to this. And then a viewer is like what I just set up when I shared that individual content for Jake, where it's basically someone that's just going to be viewing that content. So I can specify what I want to give them there. And I can say add. And that would add them down below here as a member. Now, I'm not going to click add because I just don't want to add Jake at the moment. Now, the key thing when you're adding these users is to know what each of those roles has. And if I do this learn more, what it's going to do is launch a document page from Microsoft. But the reason I bring in this up is they keep this fairly well updated as far as what those permissions mean. And they have a grid on here that says, here are the things that an administrator can do, a member can do, a contributor, and a viewer. So this is a helpful grid that allows you to kind of see what a user can and cannot do within each of those roles for the workspace. Now, most of your users are just going to be viewers of that. And if, as you recall back in our discussion that I had, a few weeks ago around the different licensing modes, if you have a Power BI premium model, the users of that or the viewers of that don't even necessarily need to be a pro or a premium user. They can be just a generic free, because in some of the premium models, what you're doing is you're actually paying for the volume of the users. Now, if you're just a pro user and have a pro workspace, then all of the users also have to have a pro license. And actually, I'm going to guess down here. So down here, number 5, even if you don't have a Power BI, they give you some information about what is needed or not on the different viewers within that and some other bullet points. And Microsoft's been very good about keeping this list up and as they add and change things. So very helpful to just do that, learn more. Or if you just even Google Power BI roles, this grid comes up on a lot of different third-party blogs and so forth that people have done. But the Microsoft site is the most updated version of that. So just in summary then, share individual content gives you that individual reports. But if you want to control the workspace as a whole, then you're going to use the access link and give users. Now, those users don't have to be individuals. They can be AD groups. They can be Office 365. There's some different teams, groups, I believe. There's some different options they have for sharing that content within it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be user by user that you're doing that. So keep that in mind. Now, the other thing that I hear from people is, yeah, that's great. I'm sharing someone a dashboard, but I want this user to see company one and this other user to see company two, or this user to see these employees, but not that. Keep in mind, this access that I'm showing you here is global to that content. So it's basically showing everything. When you're getting into the individual pieces of data within that, that's called row level security. And we'll be covering that in a future session. So the sharing I showed you today is just sharing you the reports, the dashboards, and workspaces as a whole. The content within it, you're going to have to use row level security to filter that within there. So hopefully you found today's session helpful, and you'll see how easy it is actually just to when you create a report, share it with others. You just do a simple share and you're off and running. So I want to thank you for joining today's session. And if you do have any other ideas going forward of things that you'd like us to discuss, feel free to send us suggestions to info@dashboardgear.com, and we would love to present those topics to you. Thanks for joining, and have a great weekend.